I'm going over the most missed exams from exam 1. It covers order of operations within simplifying expressions, solving equations, and then also evaluation. So a lot of work on order of operations and then some key little strategies to help you be successful in evaluating and solving. This is a simplify an expression. Again, it's an expression because there's no equal sign here, but all we can do is combine as far as we can. That means we use GEMDAS. Looking at GEMDAS, I see that grouping is the first thing I need to do, which in this case, I have absolute value. Well, absolute value is a grouping symbol, so I need to do that before I do anything else. Unlike parentheses, though, there are a couple of steps that I have to do after I have simplified what's inside. That is often, those two steps are often the place that people make mistakes the most often. So within the absolute value, I have to do order of operations. So the negative 10 stays the same. And then I have a positive 3 times a negative 4. So that turns into a negative 12. I'm still not done. I need to keep combining what's inside that absolute value. This gives me negative 22. Okay, absolute value has to be applied. Absolute value talks about the distance from 0. So it is non-directional, which means your answer is always positive. So when I apply the absolute value to that negative 22, I convert the absolute value to parentheses, turn the number positive, and then close parentheses. If you don't do that, if you don't replace the absolute value with parentheses, you will lose any, could be an exponent thing, it could be multiplication, but you will lose that if you get rid of the parentheses. So you don't have a choice. You have to do that step. Now, I'm done, let's see, with my grouping. I don't have exponents. Do I have multiplication and division? I sure do, right here. So I copy down the negative 12, and then I do my 7 times 22, and I get 154. Now I do my negative 12 plus 154, and I get 142. Which I label as GEMDAS, G for grouping. And then I write my multiplication and division and addition and subtraction horizontally as a reminder that when that's all I have in terms of operations, I have to go left to right. Looking at order of operations, I see I have to do grouping first. In this case, there's a parentheses with a 7 minus 12. So I need to do 3 minus 5. I have to keep those parentheses, and those will stay until I'm ready to do multiplication. So they will be around for a moment, and then I just recopied everything else. Now I don't have any other grouping, but I do have exponents. Oops, I'm not done with those yet. So I copy everything that doesn't have an exponent, keep the parentheses. Now the base is negative 5, and you are multiplying two of those together. So negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. There are no parentheses holding that negative in, so the negative is out by itself, and then I square the 7 and I get 49. Okay, now I don't see any other exponents, so I am done with that, and I now move to multiplication and division. So do I have multiplication or division? I certainly do, right here where there's a number sitting right next to the parenthesis. So that is the next thing I need to do. I get 3 minus 125 minus 49. I have no more multiplication or division, And now I move to addition and subtraction. And again, I have to go left to right. So here I get negative 122 minus 49. And then I need to go ahead and make that subtraction. So I subtract 49 and I get negative 171. On problems like these where we are simplifying fractional expressions, I look at it as really three different problems. One is simplify the numerator, then simplify the denominator, and once that's done, you create your fraction and then reduce if you can. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pull out the numerator. And we are simplifying, so that means I have to use GEMDAS. I have grouping here with 2 plus 3. So 3 minus 2 cubed plus, now because there's no multiplication here, I can just go ahead and drop those parentheses, which I will choose to do here. If you keep them, it's okay, it won't impact anything, and it's better to overuse parentheses than it is to underuse them. I'm done with my grouping. I do have an exponent. I've got this 3 here, so that's the next thing I need to do. I have 3. Well, the negative is not inside the base, right, being held in by parentheses. So that means the negative goes there, and I get 2 cubed, which is 8. And then I add 5. All I have is addition and subtraction remaining. I'm done with those, so I have to go left to right. I get negative 5 plus 5, which goes down to 0. So the numerator of my reduced, or of my simplified fraction is 0. Now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to do the denominator. So negative 7 squared plus 5 times 2. Well, I don't have grouping. I do have an exponent. I have that square there. The negative is not part of the base, so I get negative 49 plus 5 times 2. I'm done with my exponent. Do I have multiplication and division? I certainly do. It's right there. I get negative 49 plus 10. I'm done with that, and now I do my addition and subtraction, and I get negative 39. That is my denominator. Anytime you have a 0 in the numerator, the entire answer is 0. So that is what it simplifies down to. This is another simplify problem. The difference between the previous problems and this one is that we now have a mix of variables. So we need to think in terms of like terms once we get to addition and subtraction. Outside of that, the process is the same. So I look for my grouping. Well, I do have grouping. I have 2 sets of parentheses, but there are no like terms within those, so there is nothing that I can do for grouping. There are no exponents, so those go away, or that goes away, and now I'm at multiplication and division. When I have a number sitting right outside the parentheses, that is the distributive property, and I multiply what's on the outside by everything that's on the inside. If there's just a negative out there, you can put an invisible 1 to remind yourself that you are actually multiplying through with a negative 1. So now that I've indicated my distributive property, I'm going to go ahead and run those calculations. So a negative times a positive is a negative, so I get negative 12x. Negative 4 times negative 2 is plus 8y. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 8. Okay, I'm done with that side. Now I do negative 1 times negative 7x is plus 7x. All of the signs are just going to flip in here. Negative 1 times positive 10 is negative 10. Now I look for like terms. I'll start here with the first x. We have negative 12x, and I see that there's another x here. Well, negative 12x plus 7x, I have more negatives than I do positives. The difference is 5, and then the x just goes along for the ride. So that's what I get when I simplify the x terms. I'm on to the y, and I don't see any other y term. So that just drops down. And now I'm left with negative 8 minus 10. The signs are the same, so my answer is going to be negative. And I'm just headed further to the left of 0, so I get negative 18. And that is your final answer because those are not like terms, and as a result, I can't combine them any further. Here we are evaluating, which most of the process is simplifying. But there are two things that we need to do before we get to simplifying. So the first thing when evaluating is you rewrite the expression and you remove your variables and replace them with parentheses. This makes sure that you don't accidentally miss an exponent application or multiplication. Those are really the main things that putting these parentheses in makes a difference on. So you can't choose whether you do this or not. This is a must as you're substituting your things in. Now we put the numbers in that we've been given. So we're told that z equals negative 2. So that goes right here. X is negative 1, so that goes here. Y is 3, and Z is negative 2. I'm now at simplifying, so I have to go back to my GEMDAS. And remember, write your GEMDAS every time so that you don't miss out on having that map to guide you. Grouping, I have right here. I see that I have two negatives here. That is the same as having a negative 1 that's being multiplied by that negative 2. So what I do is I automatically turn those negatives positives, and I can see that that becomes a 3 plus 2. So I get 5 minus, just copy everything down. We're only dealing with grouping right now. Negative 1, parentheses, 5. There are no other grouping symbols, so I'm done with that level. I do have an exponent right here, so that is the very next thing that I do. The base on that exponent is negative 2. So this becomes 5 minus. That minus has nothing to do with the square because the square is not sitting next to it. So I have negative 2 times negative 2, which gives me positive 4. And then plus negative 1 times 5. I am done with my exponents. Now I'm at multiplication and division, which I do have right here. So 5 minus 4. Well, this becomes plus a negative 5. Well, plus a negative 5 can also be written as negative 5. So I'll just make a note of that. 5 minus 4 plus negative 5 means the same thing as this. I usually recommend writing it as subtraction because people find that less confusing, but either way is absolutely fine. They mean the same thing. No more multiplication and division, so I'm ready to do addition and subtraction. Go left to right. 5 minus 4 is 1 minus 5, and I get negative 4. Here we're being asked to solve, and notice it's the first time that we've seen an equal sign. Just like when you have a fractional simplification problem, I like to think, for those, I look at it as I have a numerator to simplify, then a denominator, and then I work across that fraction sign. It's the same thing I do here. I look at the left-hand side, I simplify it. I look at the right-hand side, I simplify it, and then I start looking at it in terms of how I can isolate my variable. So on the left side, I see I have the distributive property. So negative 3x minus 6 equals, well, here I also have my distributive property. And remember, we just continue to use GEMDAS, the rules of the road, whenever we're simplifying. I couldn't do anything for grouping because those weren't like terms. I didn't have exponents, but I do have multiplication in the form of the distributive property. So I'm dropping down the 5 minus 5x. Negative 5 times positive 3 is negative 15 plus 7. The left-hand side are not like terms, so I can't do anything else there. Negative 3x minus 6 equals, all right, looking for like terms. I have these constants, and remember the signs in front of them go with them. So this is the same as 5 minus 15 plus 7, and that's what we need to simplify. It also means there's no other x here, so the negative 5x stays the same. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop that down, and then I'll do this calculation, which is, let's see, negative 10 left to right plus 7, which gives me negative 3. So I get negative 3 over here. Everything is simplified on each side of the equal sign, so now I start working across the equal sign. Two ways to think about it in terms of the order. One is we are actually doing opposite order of operations, so you always cancel addition and subtraction first, or you can think of it as the first thing we do after simplifying is we combine like terms across the equal sign, which also refers to addition and subtraction because you only combine like terms with those operations. I like to work with my variables first and to try to keep them positive if I can. So that's why I'm choosing to add 5x to both sides. If you do something else, as long as there's not a mathematical error, it's absolutely fine. You can do it in whatever order you would prefer. Okay, so I've got no other x's, so the 2x just stays put. Now I add 6 to both sides. That goes away and I get 2x equals 3. Well, 2 is being multiplied by the x, so to cancel that, I need to divide by 2, and x equals 3/2. And you will leave it in that form rather than convert it to a decimal or a mixed number. If I ask you for one of those, then you would change it, but since I haven't asked you for that, you would leave it as an improper fraction. There is one process for checking answers or checking solutions, and that is using our evaluation process. So when you're asked to show if something is a solution or to check a solution, you have to use evaluation. You don't just solve and see if you get the same answer. Okay, so evaluation, we take out our variable and replace them with parentheses. So negative 4, there's the parentheses where the x was. Negative 3, here is the parenthesis where the x was. Now I substitute in the negative 10, which is the answer that I'm checking. And now I'm ready to simplify. So grouping, here's that GEMDAS. Well, I've got grouping here. So I have negative 4 times negative 9 equals negative 3. And then that gets combined and I get negative 12. Now I multiply. 36 equals 36. because they came out as the same, it means that in fact negative 10 is the solution to the equation.